Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Sports Talk with Austin, your daily dose of sports and entertainment. And today we are going to talk about all things college football week 4, go over the week ahead of us, preview predictions. But first, let's have a look back, shall we? What a crazy week it was. You know, obviously, all the hype with Colorado. Game day, big noon, 60 minutes, everybody, all eyes on prime time. And Shador Sanders balled out against Colorado State. Obviously, all the heatedness of that game. What a throw that was. Florida at home beating Tennessee. Alabama with a quarterback issue at their hands, Kansas State losing on a 61-yard field goal of all things. I mean, just a 61 yards at a college level, that's crazy. Even at a pro level, the NFL level, that's stinking crazy. But that was all the week right there. Michigan and Georgia struggled a little bit, you know, but they got it together at the end, and here we are. Here we are, week 4 previews and predictions. So let's hop right into it, shall we? And let's start off with Wisconsin at Purdue on a Thursday night. Now, this is going to be a very interesting game because Wisconsin, coming off a win, after losing to Washington State, can they keep it rolling, opening up Big Ten play? Can Luke Fickell and company keep things together? We shall see. On the other hand, Purdue, they lost 35-20 on NBC Saturday night to Syracuse. They were turnover plagued that night. Hudson Card had some bright moments, but Purdue ultimately just too many turnovers and Garrett Schrader tearing that defense apart limb by limb. So this is going to be an interesting game. It's a Thursday night. No, excuse me, it's a Friday night. My bad. A Friday night game. It's at Purdue. I think in this game here, Purdue has shown to be the spoil makers, but I think in this game, I think Luke Fickell, is now that the attention's kind of off Wisconsin. I think they open up Big Ten play, and they open up with a W. I think Wisconsin's offense, now under Luke Fickell and his regime, I think their offense, is more than just run the ball and let's play some defense. And I think they're going to show that against Purdue. And I think Purdue is going to have some trouble handling that. Obviously, a running quarterback Purdue struggled with, like Garrett Schrader. I think in this game, they're likely to struggle with Wisconsin altogether. I got the Badgers pulling out a W here. Now, on to our second Friday night game. It's an ACC showdown. NC State at Virginia. NC State coming off a win against VMI. Nothing unusual. Virginia and Tony Elliott are off to an 0-3 start. Is Tony Elliott already on the hot seat? They were playing good for the first half, at least against Maryland, but then it all fell apart. And then Maryland scores 35, 40, something crazy unanswered. And now we're in this situation where this is almost, for Tony Elliott, it's a gotta have it game. If they want any chance of salvaging what's left of their season. But I think NC State, after what happened against Notre Dame, I think NC State, Brendan Armstrong, that defense, I think Virginia, they're going to be taking a lot of losses this year, and this is going to be a part of it. I think NC State's too much. I'm picking NC State to win this game. Now on to the second of 2 Big Ten games that are taking place. These are now the Saturday games. Rutgers at Michigan, at number 2 Michigan. Now, Rutgers, had a great opening day win for them against Northwestern. They opened up Big Ten play on that day on a Sunday. And, Rutgers has looked pretty good, but we also have to put in proper context. Rutgers really didn't play nobody worth a note because they beat Virginia Tech and, Northwestern, two of arguably the bottom feeders, as Rutgers is maybe a bowl team, and Michigan. But on the other hand, for Michigan, they've struggled in games like these. I mean, heck, Bowling Green gave Michigan a game there for a bit because JJ threw two picks. They fumbled the ball on a kickoff return. I mean, it's just something about Michigan in these slow starts sometimes. And, it's very interesting because Rutgers is a lot better than I think people expected. Now, I know it's only week 4 and we don't really have much to go off of yet, or we don't have a big sample size, but I think honestly, Rutgers could give Michigan a scare, but I think JJ and Blake Corum, and I think that Michigan defense is just going to be too much for a lot of teams. I think Rutgers may keep it close for maybe a half, like they did last year, and then Michigan's going to run them off the field. I think Michigan gets a big time dub here and opens up 1-0. Now, speaking of big time games, number 4 Florida State at Clemson. This is arguably the biggest game, maybe of the weekend, this is the biggest game in the ACC because this is going to be Florida State's prove it game. How good are they actually? Is Florida State ready to take Clemson's spot at the top of the ACC hill? Well, they're going to get a chance at Death Valley Saturday at noon. It's not a night game. Many wonder if they hadn't lost Duke, would this have been a night game? Well, we can't go back in history and redo any of that, but it's at Saturday at noon. I think this is going to be a really fun game because you've got Clemson, who's held it down for so long, and they've kept it so calm, collected, and composure. They kept everything in check. Clemson, the talent from Florida State is kind of slipping a little bit. Jordan Travis, but Florida State last week almost gave it away to BC, Boston College. And if it hadn't been for the fact of those 18 penalties, they could have had a loss on their record because BC was going to get that ball back before that face mask penalty, and who knows what would have happened from there. But this game here, I'm picking Clemson. I think, Florida State, yes, they had that great win over LSU, but you also got to think, though, if this was in Florida State, I would absolutely pick Florida State for sure. But this is in Death Valley. I think people are going to realize that Clemson, I still think, runs the ACC, and that Florida State's not quite there yet in terms of taking it from them. On a talent level, they're right there with Clemson, if not better. But as far as coaching and team play, I think Clemson still got this. I think Clemson wins it, but it's a hard-fought game. I could see this being like a 23-20 type game where Clemson wins it at the end. But I think Clemson wins. But don't be surprised if the Seminoles defense is flying around. We'll see how much of big game jitters Jordan Travis will have. Against LSU, he looked fantastic. Let's see if he could take it in the biggest game, arguably, of his life, in his career, against Clemson. Can they get it done? We'll have to see. Now, on to another interesting game. Number 16, Oklahoma at Cincinnati. Now, this game's interesting for a couple reasons. Number one is Cincinnati. They came off of a win in Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago. I know they had that bad loss last week to Miami of Ohio, but maybe they could turn around here against Oklahoma. Oklahoma is looking pretty good. Their offense is looking dynamic. Dylan Gabriel, Brent Venables looks like he's had the defense, looks like for the most part, fixed. But what makes this game, the second point that makes this game interesting is that it's at Cincinnati Stadium, that they're going to Cincinnati. If this was at Oklahoma, I don't think we'd even be discussing this, or if we were, it would just be Oklahoma running them off the field. I think since this is at Cincinnati, I think Oklahoma's going to, have a little bit of a struggle. It's going to be one of those games where Oklahoma's defense, we're going to find out how really improved they are. But we're also going to learn a lot about Cincinnati. How good are they? Are they going to be just an average 6-6 run of the mill bowl team, or maybe are they going to be more than that? We're going to learn a lot about them. Has Scott Satterfield carried on Luke Fickell's legacy? It'd be all very interesting. But Oklahoma Cincinnati, I think, should be a fun game. And I'm picking Oklahoma. I think that Dylan Gabriel and that explosive Sooners offense will take over late in the end. And I think Oklahoma's defense is going to show that they're vastly improved. That Brent Venables has finally had time to recruit and had time to make Oklahoma what is his. Now that Lincoln Riley's up in USC, making USC great again. But I think Oklahoma wins this game and they don't fall for. And this is the first Big 12 game for both teams. I think Oklahoma starts off 1-0 in the Big 12 and keeps it rolling. Now, talking about a trap game, Army at Syracuse. Now, Army has been known to give some of the best teams the hardest times. And let's be honest, Army is a team that could beat anybody on any given day. I mean, look what they did against Oklahoma, 28-21 in overtime with Kyler Murray. I mean, obviously that's not saying much because, yes, Oklahoma's always had fantastic offenses, but Oklahoma's defense has historically been bad. So, of course, Army can score on them. But as far as this goes, this is going to be a really fun game. I think, a lot of people should tune into this game. I think, both sides, both these teams can run the ball. Both have quarterbacks that can run. And Army coming off a great win over UTSA. I think this game, plus Syracuse, Garrett Schrader tore up that Purdue secondary with his legs and wore them out. And Syracuse just didn't commit as many turnovers. But I think for this game here, I think this game is going to be close. But I got Syracuse winning 27-21. I think Syracuse, since this is at the Dome, I think Syracuse with the added edge of being at the Dome. If this was at Army, Army could be the favorite in this game. But since it's at Syracuse and teams have been notorious for having trouble with this game, and plus, could this be a look ahead because then next week they have Clemson on the schedule. So, could be an interesting look ahead game. I think Army will give them a good game, but I think Syracuse pulls it out. But don't be surprised if this is anywhere from 7 to maybe even a point difference in a Syracuse win. Now, on to the SEC. You got Auburn and Texas A&M. Now, this ought to be interesting. You've got Jimbo Fisher against Hugh Freeze. This is going to be Auburn's first big test. Texas A&M, it's going to be Auburn's first big test. Can Hugh Freeze open up his career in SEC conference play, go to the 12th man at Aggie Land and get a W? Well, we'll have to see. But I think, honestly, you look at this, both teams kind of need to win. From the A&M perspective is you don't want to start 0-1 in the hole if you're Jimbo, and plus you have all this talent, and you already took that loss to Miami, which Miami's offense tore you to shreds. So if you're A&M, you kind of need to start SEC play off on a good note. But if you look at it from Auburn's perspective, they really need to start Hugh Freeze's era in the SEC on a good note as well because of the fact of his first year at Auburn, just trying to get this team back to bowl eligibility, maybe even surprise a few teams. But this will be very interesting. I think, obviously, you got first-year head coach in Hugh Freeze, Auburn. You got Jimbo, who's been there a while and who's getting paid a lot of money for not winning a lot of games. But I think Jimbo and company get this done. I think, the experience edge of Jimbo hadn't played in the SEC for so long. Hugh Freeze, he's kind of got that, kind of getting his roster together. I think A&M, more talent-wise, will play better, and I think they realize, we need this game if we want any shot to compete in the SEC or maybe even stay alive for the CFP race. I think Jimbo and company get this done at home. If this was at Jordan-Hare in Auburn, you could definitely say the Tigers could shock the world. They may even still shock the world, but I think A&M too much talent, too many big playmakers. I think give Auburn and Hugh Freeze. We'll give Hugh Freeze at least a welcome to the SEC moment. Now this coming up right here, we start Pac-12 play. Number 19 Colorado at number 10 Oregon. Now this is the game that I'm going to be glued to my TV set on. This is the game right here I've been waiting to see. The classic, we're going to find out, how good is Colorado? That's been the question swirling around. Is Colorado actually any good? How legitimate are they? Is Shedeur Sanders, when he plays a competent team, is he going to be the same quarterback? Well, we're going to find this out in Autzen. Obviously Oregon, Bo Nix, Dan Lanning, they've looked really good. Like I said on my video the other day about the AP poll, which by the way, go check that out. A great video. Talk about all things in the AP poll. I said Oregon, if you take out the Texas Tech game, they played really well. The Texas Tech game, they've shown concerning signs that they can be beat. That the defense is still a little suspect. Offense can be stopped. But I think in this game, I think this is going to be high scoring. I don't expect any defense to be played here. I think we're going to see something like a 55-48 kind of game. I think, honestly, right now, I'm going to say Oregon wins, but I would not be surprised if Shedeur and company find a way to pull this off. Now, it is going to be tough. I must mention that Travis Hunter is expected to be out at up to 3 to 4 weeks, according to reports on Bleacher Report. After he got that unnecessary hit, in that Colorado State game, which that we just don't condone that. Why can't we have a clean, healthy game? But beside the point, prayers up to Travis Hunter. Hopefully he gets healthy and back out there because he's a stud and a baller. And he's a big part of Colorado's offense and defense. But I think with the absence of Travis Hunter, I think that's going to be a big key piece missing. I think Bo Nix been in these big games. I think Oregon wins, but I expect it to be in the high 40s, low 50s type game. I got the Ducks winning. Now, on to another Pac-12 game. Number 22, UCLA at number 11, Utah. Now, this right here is going to be another great game that I think we're all going to be glued to the TV set on. And that is the fact of, Utah got through their non-con without Cam Rising, and now they're opening up Pac-12 play. Is he going to be back? Don't know the status just yet. But it is starting to get a little concerning because now you're beginning the meat of your Pac-12 schedule. You open up against 22 UCLA. This isn't Rice Eccles. And, last year, this is kind of a revenge game for Utah. Just for the fact of it was UCLA who, albeit it was at the Rose Bowl, at their home place, they beat Utah. Although it was there, they did beat them. So Utah kind of wants to get a little revenge like they did against Florida. Now, UCLA, on the other hand, Chip Kelly, Dante Moore, that offense is looking really good. Defense is so. It's looked okay. They've played a couple really good Power 5 teams, and it's looked okay. Chip Kelly's been a master at the offense. I'm interested to see is how is UCLA and Chip Kelly going to respond to Kyle Whittingham and company's really good defense, excellent defense. Cole Bishop, he's a baller. He got that pick that won him the Baylor game. I think this is going to be really interesting, especially since if Cam Rising is not healthy, this could make it a lot closer. But I think Utah will prevail for the simple fact of Rice Eccles, one of the hardest home environments for opposing teams to go in. I think Utah, this is going to be one of those games where it's going to look ugly, but they're going to win. And the question will still remain, if Cam Rising is not healthy and playing, when does he come back? Because Utah, is going to need him, especially when they get to the Oregon, Washingtons, the Colorados, and those type games. UCLA, Oregon State, I think they can let it slide, but it's going to be really tough for them to win this game. But I got Utah winning. I think the Utes pull it off at home. Now, this is another fun game, and it's got a lot of drama surrounded it. Can Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin, former Nick Saban assistants, can they both get the job done this year? And the game I'm referring to, number 15, Ole Miss, the Ole Miss Running Rebels, at number 13, Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Now, this is kind of more interesting on the Bama side of things because Ole Miss chugging along, Jackson Dart, Samir Chugs, looking fantastic. The running back duo, Pete Golden seems to have the defense maybe fixed to a certain extent. Alabama, they got quarterback issues, to say the least. Ty Simpson, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Buckner, none of them are working, but Jalen Milroe has been named the starting quarterback once again. So I'm curious to see in this game, the SEC home opener, SEC opener for both. I'm just curious to see how will Tommy Rees scheme up the Bama offense for Milroe. Is it going to be more run heavy? Kind of get play action going, maybe set up some more screen games. Because Ole Miss can score in a hurry. And I think, for the longest time, a lot of times teams would run the ball, try to keep the ball away from Alabama. But I think it's the reverse now. I think Bama's going to have to, with Jalen Milroe, run the ball, do some read options, screen passes, kind of get him comfortable again, and kind of get things moving, and keep Ole Miss on the sideline. Keep that high explosive offense with Jackson Dart and Samir Chugs. Keep it in check and keep Ole Miss from scoring a lot because Alabama, this is just how they're going to have to win now because their defense, it seems pretty solid. Offensive line, if they would stop committing false starts and holdings, then that would work as well, of course. But I think Alabama's offense, they're just going to have to learn to run the ball. They don't have the Bryce Youngs. They don't have the Tuas, the Jalen Hurtses to do anything like spectacular like they did before. But on who I think will win this game, I do think Jalen Milroe and Alabama get the job done at home. I think, honestly, I think it's gonna be a lot of, like I said, running the ball, getting Milroe out in space. Screen passes, slants. Maybe even a couple crossers. Minimize the turnovers. And I think Bama wins a 28-16 type game where their defense is able to hold Ole Miss at bay and their offense is good enough just to do enough to win. But I got Alabama winning, but I think it's going to be because of the defense and Saban making sure he's able to minimize the turnovers on Milroe. Now, on to our next game. BYU at Kansas. Now, this could be a really fun game. We could see a shootout in this game as well. There's a couple games, that we can see shootouts, and this is one of them. BYU coming off a fantastic win against Arkansas. Kansas holding on and beating Nevada, but we all know Kansas and their explosive offense, Jalen Daniels, that Kansas Jayhawks offense, Lance Leopold. Lawrence is booming because it's now a football town. I think this is going to be one of those who gets the ball last and who can win. And I think in this game, I think in Lawrence, Kansas, I think Jalen Daniels, much better offense. I think they beat the BYU Cougars and get the dub at home and keep it rolling. I think Kansas has a better offense than the Cougars, and I think their defense will do just enough to slow down that Cougs offense. And plus, I think BYU is still drinking the Kool-Aid to beat Arkansas on the road, and I think Kansas at home is explosive enough and gets the win. Now, on to Big 12 play. Texas Tech at West Virginia. She'll be coming around the mountain as West Virginia says. Now, in this game here, this ought to be very interesting. Texas Tech got their first win last week, and they looked good doing it. West Virginia, on the other hand, may have single-handedly saved Neil Brown's season for the fact of, obviously not a lot of, West Virginia fans did not expect, them to beat Penn State. They beat Duquesne, of course, but whether Neil Brown was safe or not, that was going to be the question. If they didn't beat Pitt for the second year in a row, then he might have been adios. But now that they beat Pitt, I think it kind of saved his job, at least for now. And this is an important game because if you're West Virginia, you cannot have a letdown spot here. You're at home. Texas Tech is coming to you. I think West Virginia, they need this game, but Texas Tech also needs it as well. This is the Big 12 opener for both sides. I think, for me, West Virginia, knowing the desperation, I think they get another win. Now, their quarterback did get hurt. The updates have no clue what the status is for the game, but I think West Virginia, their defense proved they can hold. And I think against Texas Tech, they will do the same. And I think they continue to build on that big win over Pitt in the backyard brawl. I got West Virginia winning this, but I think West Virginia's defense, once again, comes up big. Now, interesting game here. UTSA at number 23, Tennessee. Speaking of a team who needs a bounce back in the worst way, and that's Tennessee. What in the world was that on Saturday, Tennessee? I get the Swamp is not a very good place for you to play, but my goodness, heavens to Betsy. Y'all did not look good. Tennessee did not look good Saturday, guys. They could not stretch the field. Their run game was not as explosive. Joe Milton did not look as good as he had been. But hopefully they can get this bounce back win. UTSA coming off a heartbreaking loss to Army, 37-29 at home. And obviously we all knew they would take a step back. We didn't know how big, but we all knew they would take a step back just for the fact of they lost Symir Franklin. He's gone. And Jeff Traylor lost a lot of talent. They were 10-2 last year. And even me, I thought maybe they would go 8-4, 9-3. I still think they can, but I think in this game here, I think Tennessee has to respond. This has to be a game Tennessee wins. Because if Tennessee loses this one, then the pressure is on Josh Heupel and company. How legit, how good are you actually going to be? And I think Tennessee against UTSA will be able to stretch the field a little bit more. And I think they'll have more of a running game to their advantage this time. I think Tennessee gets a win, and it's at home, and it's not at the Swamp, but Tennessee gets it done against UTSA, and I think Joe Milton has a bounce-back game. Now, this game right here, Arkansas at number 12, LSU. Now, the tale of two teams. Obviously, you had Arkansas, who suffered a crushing defeat against BYU at home. Then you got LSU, who looked great at Mississippi State. Jaden Daniels and that offense was humming right along. Just looked like it never lost a step, like it never missed a step. It was just the same old LSU offense as it had gotten to before. Now, here we are. LSU at home. Their first Arkansas and LSU, both openers for the SEC. I think, honestly, the fact that, yes, obviously Rocket Sanders was out against BYU. His status for this game, I believe, is uncertain. If he's healthy, Arkansas can have will have a chance to win. But if he's not healthy, I expect LSU to win this game, and that's why I'm going to pick LSU because Rocket Sanders is not healthy, and plus I think LSU their home SEC opener. I think their offense continues humming along, and I think they get the job done. And I think Arkansas's defense will not be able to hold them too very long. And I think right here LSU gets the W. But if Rocket Sanders is healthy, Arkansas has a chance it could potentially upset because they did last year. They almost upset them at home, but I think LSU realizing that Arkansas may be coming off a loss and Rocket Sanders is not healthy. I think LSU too much at the end. Now, another fun Pac-12 game. Boy, the Pac-12 got a lot of fun games this weekend. Number 14, Oregon State at number 21, Washington State. Now, this is going to be the first test, for Oregon State and, Washington State. We're going to see what both these teams are made of. We're going to obviously see who's what, who does what the best. Can Oregon State with DJ Uiagalelei, that offensive line, and that great defense under Jonathan Smith, can they go into Wazoo and beat Cam Ward and the Cougars? This is going to be a game that's decided, I think, down to the fourth quarter. I think Washington State's offense, Cam Ward, explosive. Now, I've used that word a lot. There's a lot, but they are truly explosive. They could score and then score quick. Now, Oregon State, they're going to have to rely on their defense. I think DJ company may have to play. Obviously their offense is going to have a little bit of a challenge, considering Wazoo's defensive line, D line can get some pressure, maybe create some turnovers. If this was at Oregon State, I would say Oregon State would win because Beaver Stadium. Just ask USC fans and Oregon fans. It's one of the hardest stadiums to go in, especially at night. It gets loud, it gets rocking. But this is at Washington State. I think this is going to be one of the closest games of the weekend. This is where the Pac-12 kind of starts eating themselves up right here. I think Oregon State wins. I think they win off of a great running game. I think DJ proves that he can win in the big game. But I expect Oregon State to run the ball, chew some clock, and keep Cam Ward on the sideline. I got the Beavers winning this game on the road and opening up Pac-12 play with a win. Now, number 3, Texas at Baylor. Could this be a letdown spot for Texas? 2 weeks ago they came off of a fantastic win against Alabama, and now Wyoming, it kind of looks scary there, Texas fans, but they got it together. They're at Baylor. Waco is a hard place to play. Just ask Utah. They went to Waco after Baylor lost to Texas State somehow, and they gave Utah all they could handle. I think this right here could be upset alert. I think Texas going into Waco, I think this could be a very interesting letdown spot for the Longhorns. I think Texas, be aware, because Baylor, it's not always what they seem, but Baylor comes around and plays. Baylor at home is just different. I think they want to shake off that Texas State loss. I think Texas, Quentin Ewers, if he's throwing the ball accurate and they got a nice little running game, Texas will more than likely win this game. But if the Quentin Ewers that showed up against Oklahoma State last year, where he's like 11 of 34 and throws 2 picks and is not looking good, Baylor could definitely win this game. Baylor could get a home win and start off Big 12 play on the right note. But I'm going to trust Texas and Quentin Ewers to be the Quentin Ewers against Alabama, and the Quentin Ewers that is efficient, and the Quentin Ewers that will not turn the ball over, and Texas to rely on their running game and their offensive line to push them home in Waco. But Baylor, this is very much a winnable game. If this was not in Waco, then the questions may start. The questions would be, can Baylor cover the spread? But since this is in Waco, this is in Baylor's house. There. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of it. Number 6 of this week. Number 6, Ohio State, and number 9, Notre Dame. And shout out to my good buddy, Will Indeed. I know he's going to be watching this thing heavenly closely, cheering on his Brighton Irish. And Will, just for you, I hope they get the dub because you're coming to see my Cardinals in week 6. And we need you all in a good mood so we can get you. All joking aside, though, love Will, good buddy. Go check out Will and D's channel. Great stuff over there. Good buddy of mine. Check him out. Always love his comments on Notre Dame. But on this game, I think this game, obviously last year was a tale of two different stories. You had Notre Dame with, Drew Pine, had a nice little running game, offensive line, defense. Notre Dame had all that. But Ohio State, they were able to keep that explosive Ohio State offense last year in check because they played week 1. And C.J. Stroud, Marvin Harris, Bukma, all those guys, Garrett Wilson, they were all there. And, Garrett Wilson was not there. My bad. They were able to keep that offense in check and only lose 21-10 because I believe it was 14-10 Ohio State going into the fourth quarter, I believe, last year. Now you flip it on its head. We're coming to South Bend. Ohio State got a new quarterback, Kyle McCord. Marvin Harrison's still there. This game, obviously Notre Dame now with Sam Hartman and the brand new running back and a whole new O-line just about. Defense, no more Michael Mayock. There's a lot of things that's changed, but there's a lot of things that have stayed the same. I think in this game here, I'm going to say that it's all going to come down to how explosive can Ohio State's offense be? Because Notre Dame, yes, has been known to, like last year, kept them in check. But Notre Dame is going to want to run the ball and want to push the ball down the field as well. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest keys in this game, as Drew Pine didn't really push the ball down the field. Sam Hartman now can push the ball down the field. I think Ohio State is going to have to worry about that because as last year, Drew Pine, they're like, okay, if you beat us down the field, we'll live with it, but we're not going to let you run the ball. Well, now it's going to be, okay, lesser two evils for Ohio State. Do we let him run the ball and just let them just beat us down and then Sam Hartman play action, wide open down the field comes a receiver? Or do we let Sam Hartman push the ball down on us and stop the running game? This is going to be all very interesting for Ohio State. And the defenses are going to be huge in this game as well. Who can create turnovers? That ultimately decides this game. I think, and Notre Dame, they may say, no one scares us on Ohio State's offense. Very true. But you also have to think Marvin Harrison Jr. can win a game by himself. I mean, just look at his numbers against WKU last week. But with all that being put into perspective and said, I think honestly, Ohio State wins this game, but barely. Just barely. I think they create a turnover or two. Their defense plays like their head's on fire. And Kyle McCord, hits a couple deep shots to Marvin Harris, after they get their running game established. I think they beat Notre Dame, but a close one. It's a close one. Not by much. I'm this close to picking the Irish, but I just think Ohio State in the big game, Ryan Day, I think they just have more experience, and I think Ohio State gets it done on the road. Now, speaking of big games, what a Big Ten opener we got. Get it? Big Ten? But this is a big opener. Number 24, Iowa at number 7, Penn State. Now, this game right here is obviously big for the fact of, for Penn State, obviously looking down the pipe of Michigan and Ohio State still on their schedule. Iowa can wreck everything for them because Iowa with the win puts them in legitimate conversation. Oh, is Iowa a legitimate, college football playoff team? Obviously they can still win the Big Ten because they're in the Big Ten West, which is not very good, so to speak. But this is a game for Iowa. If they want to be a legitimate threat to maybe get in the college football playoffs or sneak in New Year's Six Bowl, this is a big game to decide it. At Penn State on the road, I believe it's a night game. I believe so. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think this game here, Iowa's offense is going to be the biggest difference maker. Obviously, Iowa's defense can wreck a game all by themselves. They've shown that consistently. And I think they're going to give Penn State a hard time. But can Cade McNamara, Brian Ferentz, Kurt Ferentz keep that offense together? And can Cade not turn the ball over? Can they just score enough that their defense can maybe keep Penn State in check? And that's what concerns me about this game. It's not the fact of, can Iowa's defense keep Penn State in check? I know they can. They've done it before. Iowa's defense is arguably the best in football next to Georgia's. The question is, can they keep it in check against, that offense? Because if you're getting a turnover and then the offense is turning it right back over or gets 3, then it's like, Penn State then could cash it in for 7 the other way when they get the kickoff. And I think, for me, I'm 50-50 on this game. I'm leaning Penn State. I think Drew Aller and the Nittany Lions, I think their offense is going to struggle. But I think Penn State defense, will force Iowa into some turnovers. And I think Penn State at home and that home crowd, I think will force Iowa out of their game plan early. I think Penn State wins, but it's a very, very tight win. I think it's going to be like a 20 to 14 type Penn State win. It's going to be an ugly win, folks. Now, on to another big game coming up this weekend. Number 17, North Carolina at Pittsburgh. Now, the reason this is a big game, North Carolina, what they did in non-conference was nothing short of great. Maybe even fantastic, especially after, everything that was questioned, about them. Can their defense, is it fixed, is it not? Well, we're going to find out if it's fixed or not. But in this game here, Pittsburgh 1-2, they lost against Cincinnati on the CW, and then last week in the backyard brawl, Phil Jakovic did not look as good. But this is a night game. It is on the ACC network, and this is what makes it so interesting. North Carolina, obviously, going on the road to Pitt. If North Carolina wants any shot of winning the ACC, they got to win this big road game at night. Pittsburgh, when they play at night in front of their home crowd, is a tough team to play. Their defense is just something else at night. And I think this game here, I think it's going to be the battle between Pitt's defense and North Carolina's offense. Who wins the battle? And I think ultimately, North Carolina makes enough plays. They win a sloppy, competitive road game. I got the Tar Heels winning, and I got Drake May and company hanging on and winning on the road in a tough night in Pitt. And Pittsburgh, you bet they're going to bring their A game, because after what happened last week against West Virginia, you bet they're going to have this fixed. But can the offense for Pittsburgh please get something going downfield? If they can get something downfield going, they have a chance. But North Carolina, I think too much offense, and I think they find a way to pull this out. Now, on to our final game of the week. Number 5, USC at Arizona State. Now, many people may be saying, why are we talking about this one? USC is going to run Arizona State off the field. This is not even going to be competitive. Caleb Williams is going to have another Heisman night. So true. But everyone remembers, or at least if you don't, now you're going to remember here in a second. Let's be honest. Arizona State, Arizona have been known to pull off upsets when you least expect it. 2019, Justin Herbert and Oregon, were one loss going into Arizona State. College football hopes were still there. College football playoff hopes were still there, excuse me. And then Arizona State shocks them and beats them. And they ran the ball up and down the field on them. Oregon didn't know what hit them that night. And this is why I believe USC might get a scare in this game because this could be another look-see ahead. Could they be looking ahead to Colorado? And if they're not careful, Arizona State could shock them and pull off the upset in the desert. Now, do I think they will? No. I'm picking USC, of course. Anybody that knows USC is going to win this game. But don't be surprised if this is a game where Caleb Williams has to lead USC back on a game-winning drive because this is at Arizona State. If this was at USC, USC would they'd have a field day and they'd be getting ready for Colorado. But this is at Arizona State. This is going to be a very competitive game. I think Kenny Dillingham, plus he knows USC very well, and expect USC to maybe be a little droopy coming off the bye week. I think this is going to be really close, but I think USC wins, and they win with Caleb Williams coming down the field in the last 3 to 4 minutes, putting a good drive together, and winning the game like 41-27. Putting a little stat stuff on it. But that was my week 4 preview, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully this week will be filled with great college football, and hopefully, we'll see some upsets. We'll learn about a lot about new teams and programs this week. But as always, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on that notification down below. A lot of great content coming your way. Videos coming out. And until next time, this has been Sports Talk with Austin. Peace out, everybody. Go